So, members of the board of the Manila Symphony Orchestra, distinguished Filipino authorities, members of my colleagues from the diplomatic corps, ladies and gentlemen, friends of Brazil, lovers of the music, Malvai, good evening, and as you say in Portuguese, boa noite. Well, it's my honor to welcome you tonight to the concert of Brazilian guitar and cello in this such nice place. It's a beautiful venue. And as Brazilian ambassador to the Philippines, it gives me an immense satisfaction to see my country representing collaboration with the Manila Symphony Orchestra, a cultural institution, a cultural reference that has inspired generations of Filipinos. So it's even more gratifying to have two world-renowned Brazilian musicians performing Brazilian, South American, and Philippine works. So I extend my gratitude to the MSO and to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Brazil through its cultural office, which is the Instituto Guimarães Rosa, named after one of the Brazilian greatest diplomats and writers. And this partnership forms a quite solid bridge between our cultures. What, in my view, is a reminder that music transcends borders and unites people. And my thanks also go to conductor Marlon Chen, soprano Quintin, and with all the musicians, organizers, and supporters who made this evening possible. And allow me now to share a brief story of friendship and solidarity that has paved the way for today's concert. It involves 5 characters, 2 Jeffreys, 2 Fabios, and 1 Matthias. So the Jeffreys are this arranged gentleman, Jeffrey Schenk, my very dear friend and one of the Philippines' most celebrated contemporary composers. And also my dear Jeffrey Solar, assistant director of the MSO, and a passionate advocate for classical music. In 2023, is a little story that I have to tell you. They present to the embassy with a very promising project to bring Brazilian musicians to Manila in this year of 2025 as part of the MSO's concert series. Well, we embraced this idea immediately, and we convinced that Brazilian classical music, rooted in European traditions, but enriched by indigenous and African influences, offers a sound both sophisticated and deeply expressive, as you are going to hear soon. Just as small explanation, the public in general knows Brazil by its music, the bossa nova, the samba, well, quite beautiful. Even the show that we are trying to introduce also a little bit in class here. But people sometimes don't know very much about the Brazilian classical music. And Brazilian classical music has its roots back to Portugal. When during the Napoleon Wars and Napoleon invaded Portugal, the king of Portugal came to Brazil, and he loved music, and he brought musicians. And his son, who became our first emperor, Pedro I, he himself was a composer. So back, we have already this, this love also for the classical music. And now playing Villa-Lobos that we are going to see, one of the pieces is not going to play, but we have some pieces that Villa-Lobos introduce a little bit of the Amazon forest with the birds, with the animal movements. So he even with indigenous, aboriginal elements that made very much unique, maybe the Brazilian classical music in a certain way. But turning back to my story about the 5 characters, I started with Matthias, and I wish at this very moment to honor the memory of Matthias Oliveira Pinto, one of Brazil's most outstanding cellists and pedagogues. He has performed with this orchestra in 2019, playing contemporary works of Jeffrey Schenk. Matthias and Jeff, as a matter of fact, they were not only collaborators, but also very close friends. Matthias was meant to perform today, but a very tragic accident early this year took him from us to soul. So his profound musicality and lifelong devotion to the cello have left a major legacy, inspiring generations of musicians and resonating to concert halls worldwide. So, as we celebrate the guitar and cello this evening, we also pay a tribute to Matthias. And finally, allow me to introduce the two Fabios. Starting with Fabio Zanon, he is one of the world's foremost classical guitarists, with a career spanning more than 50 countries and performance in world-class venues. A winner of major competitions, Zanon has a repertoire over 40 works for guitar and orchestra. He's also a writer, a broadcaster, and an educator, serving as fellow and visiting professor at the Royal Academy of Music in London, and an artistic director of the Cantos do Jordão Winter Festival in Brazil, whose 2025 edition is just concluded. And the second Fabio is Fabio Presgrave, a cellist of great depth and sensitivity, who champions both classical repertoire and Brazil's musical heritage. With bachelor and master degree from the Juilliard School, he has performed with leading orchestras in Europe and Latin America. A dedicated patron, he is professor and associate director of the music school at the Federal University of Rio Grande do Norte in the northeast of Brazil. His postdoctoral research at the Ministry of University was guided by the late Quintin. And in closing, I thank you all for joining us in this celebration of this dialogue and friendship, and reaffirm Brazil's commitment to cultural exchange, mutual understanding, and enduring ties between our peoples. I just want to say, to finalize, that in the current moment of world's turbulence, violence, and fragility, there is no better cure than the power of music, human affection, joy, and perseverance. And in this regard, Brazil and the Philippines remain very close, by history, by memory, by culture, and above all, by humanity. Ladies and gentlemen, let us now offer, if you allow me, a round of applause to the MCO, to the two Jeffreys, to the two Fabios, in memory to one of Brazilian universal, Matthias. Meu amigo Samat, thank you very much, muito obrigado.